My name is Therese Fontaine. I'm 33 years old. 12 days ago, I stood in the marble lobby of a New Orleans estate attorney's office and watched my mother try to speak and fail 3 times in a row. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again, like a woman drowning in air. My father stood beside her with his hands in his pockets, staring at the floor tile like it contained instructions for time travel. The attorney, a silver-haired woman named Claudette Vachon, had just read a single paragraph from a document my parents didn't know existed. A trust. A second trust. One my grandmother, Mère Adeline, had opened 11 years ago at a bank my parents had never heard of, funded by money they didn't know she had, naming one beneficiary. Me. The value of the trust? $310,000. My mother looked at me with an expression I'd never seen on her before. Not anger, not sadness, but the specific terror of someone realizing the person they underestimated had been holding the winning hand the entire time. 7 months earlier, that same mother had sat in her kitchen in Metairie, Louisiana, stirring a café au lait with a tiny silver spoon, and told me she and my father had borrowed the $75,000 in my wedding savings account, an account she'd been co-signed on since I was 18, to invest in my brother Etienne's construction company. She'd said it like she was telling me they'd eaten the last of the bread pudding. Casual, already decided, already done. It's a family investment, Therese. Etienne's company is growing. You'll get it back in 6 months, maybe a year. Your wedding isn't until October anyway. There's time. There wasn't time. Because there was never going to be money to return. Etienne's company was a sinkhole dressed in a hard hat, and my parents knew it. They just loved him more than they loved my future. But what my mother didn't know, what no one in my family knew except Mère Adeline and the attorney now reading her will, was that my grandmother had spent the last decade of her life quietly building a financial fortress around me. Because she'd seen what I couldn't bring myself to say out loud. That my parents would eventually take everything I had and give it to my brother. And she'd made sure that when they did, I'd still have something they couldn't touch. Before I tell you what happened in that attorney's office, please like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from and what time is it there? I'd love to hear from you. Now let me take you back to where it all started. Growing up in Metairie, just outside New Orleans, I learned that our family operated on a principle as old as the bayou itself. Sons inherit, daughters serve. My family. Dad was a project estimator for a commercial roofing company. Decent money, steady work, the kind of man who believed he understood business because he'd spent 30 years watching other people run one. Mom was a part-time bookkeeper at a parish church, which gave her an unearned sense of financial authority and a permanent seat on the moral high ground. My brother Etienne, 3 years older than me, was the Prince of Metairie. Tall, charming, the kind of man who could sell you your own shoes and make you feel grateful. He'd played baseball in high school, gotten a partial scholarship to Nicholls State, dropped out after 2 years, and bounced between jobs before deciding he was going to start a construction company. My parents treated this announcement like the second coming. Then there was me. Therese. The quiet one. The one who cooked the roux for Sunday gumbo. The one who balanced Mom's checkbook when she couldn't figure out the software. The one who worked 2 jobs through college so I wouldn't have to ask for $1 that would be redirected to Etienne anyway. Etienne got the horizon. I got the broom. When I was 13, I won the parish science fair. My project on water filtration in Louisiana wetlands was selected for the state competition in Baton Rouge. The entry fee and travel costs were $400. I asked Dad. He said the money wasn't there. That same week, he gave Etienne $600 for a new baseball glove and batting cage sessions because a travel team scout was maybe coming to watch him play. The scout never came. $600 for a maybe. $400 for a certainty. I didn't go to state. I told myself baseball had scholarship potential. Science fairs were just projects. At 16, I got a part-time job at a bakery on Veterans Boulevard. Fontaine's, no relation, just a coincidence that made customers smile. I worked 20 hours a week, saved every dollar, and by the end of junior year, I had $3,200. I was saving for college. Mom found the money in an envelope in my dresser drawer. She borrowed $2,000 of it for Etienne's car insurance, which had lapsed because he'd forgotten to pay it for 3 months. She told me at dinner after the fact, like she was reporting the weather. "I'll pay you back, Thérèse. Your brother needs his car for work." Etienne's work at the time was bartending 3 nights a week and sleeping until noon. My $2,000 was never returned. When I brought it up 6 months later, Mom said, "I thought we settled that." We hadn't settled anything. She'd taken my money and relabeled the theft as a family contribution. I told myself I could earn more. I was good at earning. That was my role. At 18, something happened that would define the next 15 years of my life, though I didn't understand it at the time. Ma mère Adeline, my father's mother, a Cajun woman who'd grown up in Breaux Bridge and moved to New Orleans at 19, sat me down on her back porch on Esplanade Avenue. It was August. The air was thick enough to chew. She handed me a glass of sweet tea and said, "Thérèse, I need to tell you something about this family." "What, ma mère?" "Your parents love Etienne more than they love you. You know that. I know that. Everyone who's ever sat at their dinner table knows that." I started to protest. She held up her hand. "Don't defend them to me. I've watched it for 18 years. I watched your mother take your science fair money. I watched your father choose that boy's baseball glove over your state competition. I've counted every dollar, every hour, every choice they've made, and the math doesn't lie." She took my hand. Her skin was paper thin, but her grip was iron. "I can't change them, but I can protect you, and I'm going to. You won't see how for a long time, but when you need it, when they finally take something you can't rebuild on your own, it'll be there." "What will be there, ma mère?" She smiled. "You'll know when it's time." I was 18. I didn't understand. I hugged her, drank my tea, and went home. Ma mère Adeline was planting seeds I wouldn't harvest for 15 years. I went to the University of New Orleans on a partial academic scholarship and 2 jobs, the bakery and a tutoring gig at the campus writing center. I graduated in 4 years with a degree in finance, a 3.7 GPA, and $22,000 in student loans that were entirely mine because my parents had contributed exactly nothing. During those 4 years, Etienne started and abandoned 3 business ideas: a landscaping company that lasted 5 months, a food truck that lasted 3 months, and a consulting firm that had no clients and no services and existed primarily as a line on his dating profile. My parents funded each one. The landscaping company cost them $8,000. The food truck cost $12,000. The consulting firm cost $3,500 in LLC filing fees, a website nobody visited, and business cards Etienne handed out at bars. Total parental investment in Etienne's failed ventures by the time I graduated, approximately $23,500. Total parental investment in my education, $0. After graduation, I got a job at a financial planning firm in downtown New Orleans, Brassard and Associates. Starting salary, $44,000. Not glamorous, but real. I was good at money. I understood it the way my father understood roofing, structurally, from the inside. Within 2 years, I was the firm's top-performing junior advisor. Within 4 years, I was managing $12 million in client assets. My boss, Antoine Brassard, was a quiet man from Thibodeau who'd built his firm over 30 years through discipline and word of mouth. He saw something in me that my parents never bothered to look for. "Thérèse, you have a gift for making people trust their own futures. Most advisors sell products. You sell clarity. That's worth more than you know." By 26, I was earning $78,000 plus performance bonuses. I'd paid off my student loans. I had an emergency fund. And I'd opened a dedicated savings account for one specific purpose: my wedding. I wasn't engaged yet, but I knew who I was going to marry. His name was Remy Thibodeau, a structural engineer I'd met at a crawfish boil in City Park. He was kind, funny, steady as a levee, and completely unbothered by my family's dysfunction. He asked me to marry him on the moonwalk along the Mississippi River on a Tuesday evening in April, with a ring he'd designed himself with a jeweler in the quarter. I said yes before the sentence was finished. Over the next 5 years, I saved methodically. Every bonus, every tax refund, every side income from freelance financial consulting, it all went into the wedding account. By the time we set a date, the balance was $75,000. Here's the detail that would become my undoing. When I was 18, before I understood what my mother was capable of, Mom had suggested we open a joint savings account. "For your future," she'd said. She'd been the co-signer. I'd never removed her. I should have. I know that now. I knew it then, somewhere in the back of my mind, the way you know a levee has a weak spot but trust it to hold because it always has. The levee broke in March. Mom called on a Thursday afternoon. Her voice had that particular texture, warm, unhurried, slightly performative, that I'd learned to associate with bad news wrapped in linen. "Therese, I need to tell you something about the savings account." My hands went cold. "Your father and I have been looking at Etienne's business plan, the construction company. It's really solid this time. He's got contracts lined up, equipment sourced, a crew ready to start. He just needs capital." "How much capital?" "We invested the wedding fund. All of it. $75,000. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of my desk. "You invested my money." "It's a family account, Therese, and this is a family investment. Etienne's company is going to— You stole $75,000 from my wedding fund to give to Etienne." "Don't use that word. We borrowed it. You'll get it back in 6 months, a year at most. The contracts alone are worth—" "What contracts? What equipment? Etienne has started 4 businesses and failed at all of them. What makes this different?" "He's different this time. He's matured. Your father and I believe in him." "You've believed in him every time, Mom, and every time you've funded the belief with my money." "Therese, don't be dramatic. Your wedding isn't until October. There's plenty of time." There wasn't plenty of time. Because I understood with the cold clarity of a woman who managed other people's money for a living that $75,000 invested in Etienne's construction company was $75,000 I would never see again. I called Remy, told him everything. He was quiet for a long time. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I want to scream, but first I need to think." "Then think, and when you're done thinking, we'll figure it out together." That night, I sat at my kitchen table in our apartment in Mid-City and did what I do best. I analyzed. Etienne's construction company, Bayou Built LLC, had been registered 4 months earlier. I pulled the LLC filing. It showed one member, Etienne Fontaine. No business plan filed with any lending institution, no SBA loan application, no bonding or licensing for commercial work. Just a name, a registration, and my $75,000. I called a friend who worked in commercial construction. "Is there a company called Bayou Built picking up contracts?" "Never heard of them, and trust me, I'd know." There were no contracts. There was no equipment. There was no crew. Etienne had a name and a registration, and my parents' blind faith. I drove to Metairie the next morning. I didn't call ahead. Mom was in the kitchen. Dad was in the garage. Etienne's truck was in the driveway, a brand new Ford F-250 with Bayou Built LLC decaled on the door. A $55,000 truck, purchased 2 weeks after my parents emptied my wedding fund. I walked into the kitchen. Mom looked up, startled. "Therese, I didn't know you were—" "Where's the money, Mom?" "What?" "The $75,000. Where is it right now? Show me the account. Show me the investments. Show me the contracts." She set down her coffee cup. "Etienne is handling all of that." "Etienne is driving a $55,000 truck?" Is that where my wedding fund went? Into a truck? The truck is a business expense. For a business with no contracts, no licensing, and no clients. I checked, Mom. There's nothing. It's a name on a piece of paper and a truck in the driveway. Dad appeared in the kitchen doorway, grease on his hands. What's going on? Your wife took $75,000 from my wedding fund and gave it to Etienne for a company that doesn't exist. The company exists, Therese. Show me one contract, one invoice, one piece of evidence that a single dollar of my money went into something other than that truck and Etienne's lifestyle. They looked at each other. The look. The one that said they'd rehearsed for this possibility, but not this intensity. These things take time, Dad said. You have to invest before the returns come. I'm a financial advisor, Dad. I literally do this for a living. There are no returns coming. There is no business. You gave my money to your son because you always give everything to your son, and you'll tell yourselves any story to justify it. Mom's voice went sharp. That's not fair. We love you both equally. You spent $23,500 on Etienne's failed businesses before this one. You contributed nothing to my education. You took $2,000 from me when I was 16, and now you've taken $75,000. That's not equal love, Mom. That's not even close. I left, drove back to New Orleans in silence, called my bank, removed my mother as co-signer on every account I had, changed my passwords, froze my credit report, locked down every financial door she could have walked through. Then I called Antoine Brassard, my boss. Not for advice, for a reference. I was about to need a very good attorney. The attorney was Claudette Vachon, 70 years old, Creole, educated at Tulane Law, with a practice specializing in estate law and fiduciary disputes. She operated out of a Garden District office that smelled like old books and fresh gardenias. She was exactly who I needed. I brought her everything: bank statements, the joint account records showing my deposits versus my mother's withdrawals, the Bayou Built LLC filing, the truck purchase timeline, and a spreadsheet I'd built documenting every dollar my parents had taken from me since I was 16. Claudette reviewed it in silence for 20 minutes. Then she set down the papers, removed her reading glasses, and said, "Your parents committed unauthorized withdrawal from a jointly held account that was funded almost entirely by your deposits. You have grounds for a civil claim. But I want to be honest, joint account cases are messy. The co-signer had legal access even if the use was unauthorized. So they get away with it?" I didn't say that. I said it's messy. But there's another angle, your grandmother. Mère Adeline? She was my client. The room shifted. Claudette's expression changed, not warmer exactly, but deeper. The look of someone about to open a door that had been locked for a long time. Your grandmother retained me 11 years ago. She set up a trust, an irrevocable trust, separate from anything your parents knew about. I don't understand. Mère died 8 months ago. The estate went through probate. My parents handled it. The estate they knew about went through probate. Adeline's house, her checking account, her visible assets, those were distributed according to the will your parents administered. Your father received the house. Etienne received $15,000 in savings. You received her rosary and a set of cast-iron pots. I remembered. The rosary was beautiful. The pots were heavy. I thought that was all there was. But 11 years ago, Adeline came to me with a concern. She said her son, your father, was systematically favoring her grandson over her granddaughter. She said she'd watched it happen for years, and she was afraid that one day they would take something from you that you couldn't recover from. Mère's words from the back porch. When they finally take something you can't rebuild on your own, it'll be there. She opened a trust at a bank in Baton Rouge that your parents don't use and have never known about. She funded it over 11 years through monthly deposits from a pension account your father didn't know she had, your grandfather's railroad pension, which continued paying a survivor benefit of $1,800 a month. $1,800 a month for 11 years. Plus interest, plus conservative investment growth through the trust's managed portfolio. The current value of the trust is $310,000. I couldn't breathe. I literally could not draw air into my lungs. The trust names you as sole beneficiary. The activation condition was either Adeline's death or, and this is the part that matters, a documented instance of significant financial harm caused to you by your immediate family. The wedding fund. The wedding fund. Adeline's instructions were explicit. If your parents ever took a substantial sum from you, the trust was to be disclosed immediately. She anticipated exactly what happened, Therese. She built this for the exact moment you're living right now. I sat in Claudette's office and cried for the first time in 7 months. Not from sadness. From the overwhelming, devastating love of a woman who'd been dead for 8 months, but had still found a way to catch me when I fell. Claudette let me finish. Then she handed me a letter. Mère Adeline's handwriting. Thin, elegant, the cursive of a woman educated in a one-room schoolhouse in Breaux Bridge. Ma chère Thérèse, if Claudette is reading you this letter, it means they finally did what I always knew they would. They took from you to give to your brother. They chose him over you. Again. I'm sorry I couldn't stop them. I tried, in my own way, for years. But your father is my son, and a mother's blindness about her own child is the hardest kind to cure. What I could do was build you a floor they can't break through. This money is yours, not your father's, not Etienne's, yours. Don't give it to them. Use it to build the life they would never fund. You were never worthless to me, bébé. Je t'aime pour toujours, mémère. I read it 4 times. I can recite it from memory. I will recite it when I'm 90. Claudette called my parents' attorney and requested a meeting, ostensibly to discuss estate matters. My parents arrived expecting paperwork. They found me, Claudette, and a 3-inch binder of financial documentation. My mother paused. Thérèse? What are you doing here? Sit down, Mom, Claudette opened with precision. Mr. and Mrs. Fontaine, I served as your mother's private attorney for 11 years. She established an irrevocable trust, funded by survivor pension benefits, naming Thérèse as sole beneficiary. Dad's face went blank. What trust? There was no... This trust was deliberately excluded from probate. It was held separately, funded by an income stream you weren't aware of, and structured to prevent discovery by anyone except the beneficiary. Mom looked at me. You knew? I found out when Claudette contacted me, after you stole my wedding fund. Claudette raised a hand. I've reviewed the joint account records. Your daughter deposited $73,400 over 7 years. You deposited $1,600. Then you withdrew the full $75,000 without her knowledge and transferred it to your son's LLC. She placed the bank records on the table, highlighted, annotated, undeniable. The trust Adeline established contains $310,000. Additionally, she left instructions, documented and notarized, that if the trust was activated due to financial harm by family members, I was to pursue full restitution as a condition of family access to remaining estate assets. Dad went pale. What remaining assets? The house on Esplanade Avenue, held in a family trust with a condition: no financial exploitation against any family member. You can't. That's my mother's house. Your mother structured it so that exploiting Thérèse would jeopardize your inheritance. She told me, if my son steals from my granddaughter, he doesn't deserve what I leave him either. My mother's hand covered her mouth. My father gripped the chair arms like a man in a crashing plane. The $75,000 taken from Thérèse's account will be repaid in full, voluntarily, or I file a civil claim and attach it to the Esplanade property. Mom started crying. Not quietly, the messy, gasping kind she'd used to redirect attention. But this time nobody moved. Dad tried once more. Mama wouldn't have wanted this. She loved our family. She loved your family enough to spend 11 years and $310,000 protecting your daughter from you. That's not betrayal, Mr. Fontaine. That's the deepest love I've witnessed in 40 years of practice. 90 minutes later, they agreed to full restitution. Claudette drew up the paperwork. They signed. In the lobby, my mother stopped me. Swollen face, mascara gone. The performance finally over. Therese, your grandmother, she really thought we would do this? She didn't think it, Mom. She knew it. She watched you do it my entire life. The science fair money, the $2,000 when I was 16, every dollar redirected to Etienne. She kept count the same way I did. I didn't mean to. You didn't mean to get caught. That's different from not meaning to do it. Dad stood by the elevator, pressing the button 4 times even though it was already lit. The face of a man audited by his own dead mother. We'll get you the money, he said. I know you will, because if you don't, Claudette files the claim and the Esplanade house goes into receivership. He flinched. Mama really did that? Mama really did that, because she loved me enough to assume you wouldn't. The $75,000 was returned within 45 days. My parents took out a home equity loan against their own house. Etienne found out through my parents. He left a voicemail oscillating between self-pity and accusation. Thérèse, ma mère left me $15,000 and left you $310,000? I'm her grandson too. Now Mom and Dad have to pay you back. You're tearing this family apart. I saved it. He received $15,000, stole $75,000 of my money, and still believes he's the victim. Bayou Built LLC dissolved 2 months later. No contracts signed, no homes built. The truck was repossessed. Etienne moved back in with my parents. He's 36. Remy and I got married 6 weeks ago. Small chapel on Magazine Street. 62 guests. Reception in the warehouse district. Live jazz, shrimp and grits, king cake. Cost? $41,000. From my own savings, not the trust. The trust is invested, growing, building toward our house next year. My parents were not invited. Etienne was not invited. Ma mère Adeline's rosary wrapped my bouquet. Her cast-iron pots are in my kitchen. Her letter was framed and displayed at the reception. Claudette attended. She wore a cream suit and danced to Iko Iko. She told me at night's end, "Your grandmother planned for this day, Therese. Not the wedding, the freedom. She wanted you to stand somewhere beautiful and know you got there on your own." Today, I'm a senior financial advisor. My portfolio is $28 million. I specialize in women who've experienced financial abuse. The trust has grown to $327,000 under my management. I haven't touched the principal. Ma mère told me to build a life they could never fund. My parents and I communicate through brief texts. Functional, not familial. It's not a relationship. It's a treaty. Forgiveness and trust are different currencies. I can forgive my parents for being who they are, but I will never trust them with my finances again. Their ledger is still in the red. If someone in your family has taken your money and justified it as love, family is not a license to steal. Love is not justification for exploitation. Check your accounts. Remove co-signers you don't trust. Guard your financial life like your front door. And if someone like Ma mère Adeline is watching over you, hold on to that love. It's the realest thing in the world.